Give me just, takes about 30 seconds for the live stream to kick in.
Okay.
Give me just, takes about 30 seconds for the, okay.
We're good?
We are.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Joan Mast. I am the superintendent of schools here in Scotch Plains-Fanwood, and I'm very happy that you could join us tonight. I have spoken to many parents, and I have heard and felt your grief over things that you and your children have lost in experiences in the school system due to the pandemic. I have also heard your fear and anxiety over illness and financial distress and the educational impact of the pandemic, as well as the social and emotional worries about your children. I understand that these things can bring out anger and frustration because we have a lack of control over things that this disease is bringing to us. Throughout all of this, I have to lead the school district with the health and safety of our community foremost in my mind. In deciding to go to virtual rather than the hybrid, it has been a cumulative learning on my part. In some conversations, as we were getting ready to move forward with the hybrid model, we would think of a high school class or a middle school class where there would be 10 to 15 students in a room with a teacher. Those students would be in that class close to 50 minutes for a period, where the teacher would be in that room for up to 4 hours. And we certainly know that our families are being as safe as they can be, and our staff is being as safe as they could be. But we do know that COVID-19 is still out there. And the question is, in a classroom where a teacher is for 4 hours, where students are for 50 minutes, what's the air quality in that room? Those questions started becoming realer and more powerful as we became closer to opening and putting schedules into movement. We thought of high school classes where we would also have students who have different types of HVAC systems within that building. There's a new wing and an old wing, and the air circulation is very different in those rooms. At the same time, we know that the road back recommends 6 feet social distancing, and our concern from the start was how few students can we have in order to maintain that. The road back's guidance is if you can, that's the premium standard. If you can't, then there are other pieces that you could put in place to maintain safety. So we know that in the air, after a class leaves, because of the aerosols in the room, it lingers, and it's very important to have ventilation from outside air. We also started wondering about the air in one classroom, how it circulates to an adjacent classroom. And these were questions that just had a whole different level of scrutiny as we learned more about COVID and as we became closer to opening. Why wasn't it addressed earlier? That is a very valid question. And I tell you that we really learned more as it went on. When I think back to March, I think of how people left their mail outside, how we scrubbed off groceries, how we were told that masks weren't even significant at that time. So from March until now, we have been gaining knowledge. on ways to be safe. So we have, and also we have known that the ventilation is important, but we also we're following the guidelines of the road back, and we continue to learn more how to make our systems safer. People ask, how can other districts open, and how come we're delaying the opening to review our HVAC system? And in reality, every district has different types of ventilation systems. I can't speak to that. But ultimately, my number one concern is that our students will be safe, our staff will be safe, so they can best be educated. And to begin the year at home is the safest for everyone at this time, and will also be a sound educational experience for all students. We have been working on revamping what at-home learning was like in the spring, and we know that questions will come to the mic this evening to bring more clarification to the changes that we'll be bringing forth. So tonight, we are recording this so we could capture all of your questions and comments. And in addition, we have a panel here who will perhaps be able to add additional layering to my answers. And what we're going to do is have certain protocols so you could come to the mic and ask your question. Dr. Dumarisk?
So in addition to the parent meetings and forums that are happening this week, we also have an opportunity tonight. Here is the protocol for how we will plan to field questions. So if you have a question or comment, please, we ask that you click the raise hand button located at the bottom of your screen. When we enable the speaking feature on this Zoom meeting, we ask that you state your name and what schools your children attend. We ask then that you ask your question or make your comment. You'll be limited to one question or comment at a time so others have a chance. If someone before you asks your question and you feel it has been addressed, please click lower your hand at the bottom of your screen. That will take you out of the queue. Please note, if you lower your hand and raise it again, you will be bumped to the bottom of the queue, and then all frequently asked questions will be published. So at this time, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and we will begin the Q&A. And thank you for bearing with us with our new Zoom venture. So we have Diana Fellon, who will be the first to ask a question.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Actually, it's her husband. She's sitting right next to me. Diana, my name is Eric Fellon. I have two boys at Terrell Middle School. Actually, one's just starting Terrell, so it's his first time there. I do have a question I'd like to pose. Is outdoor learning, with all the time we've had, has this been explored at all as an option? And the reason for this is I totally understand and get that indoor learning is not a viable option, and I support that not having indoor learning. But students that are entering kindergarten or first grade, or students that are coming into the district for the first time, moving into Scotch Plains, they do not have any sense of physical contact with their peers or the teachers, or know anything about a system. Plus students like my younger son going into a new school for the first time to experience some of that, even though it won't be in the school. I think it is a huge benefit for the students of all ages to have some sort of interaction initially in the first 2 months of school. There's September and October, where most of the days will be great weather, and I'm feeling that if there's inclement weather in the forecast, you could do virtual learning. I know there's plenty of vendors out there that can partner with the school district to put up like industrial tents in case there is some sort of inclement or something needs to happen where we need to take cover. And also, I just feel that this is something that's important to the mental health of all the students.
So thank you. I think that that's something as we're moving forward in some type of consideration. Very early on, we thought that we could, get many tents and just move it outside, knowing that that fresh air would be doable. But there just are safety concerns to move school from inside to outside for all the reasons that we've been putting so many safety protocols in place. In addition, outside, we have some kids who have fairly serious allergies as well. But your point of introducing students in some way so they have live contact is something that we're considering, especially for our youngest learners. And perhaps Ms. Halbert from Evergreen can speak to that.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Maston. Good evening, everyone. Yes, at the elementary schools, we've all been working very hard on determining how and when we could have our students meet with their teachers, at least in person, socially distanced, right at the beginning of school. So we're looking at either those days right before September 14th or that following week. Some of us are also setting up some other meet and greets with our brand new students. We will be having an outdoor meet and greet with our kindergarten students next week. And each family was given a specific time to come so that we wouldn't have everybody at one time. And so we are definitely very aware of that. And we will continue to work on as many opportunities for our students to be in socially distant contact.
Dr. Mass, next question.
Yes.
We have Catherine Nicholson.
Hi, Catherine. Does Catherine need to be unmuted?
Go ahead. All right, we will move along. And we have Amrita Cherry.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to actually talking to us parents. I really appreciate it. So here's my question, and this comes both from me and my husband. So our son is in Brunner Elementary. And yes, we've been provided information that the schools would be providing Chromebooks, MacBooks, iPad, and so on. So here's the question: is providing this technology the best use of funds by the school district? Because technology cost is more than just the equipment, right? We need to consider the tech support, the replacement for breakage, liability insurance in case of hacking, etc., right? So could a better approach be to offer the equipment only to those households that really need it? Many households in Scotch Plains, having talked to different parents, already have the computers and the iPads and save the money to actually accelerate the remediation of issues that need attention, especially the HVAC system, right? And this can potentially help ensure safe opening of schools and actually starting the second marking period in school without impacting the budget.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good point. There are reasons that there's advantages to providing district devices. And Adam, would you be able to speak to that? Adam is our technology coordinator.
Absolutely. So by the district being able to provide technology for our students, we're able to be...
Adam, it's hard to hear you.
Is that a little bit better?
Yes.
Okay. So by providing the technology, we can provide consistent platforms across grade levels, whereas home-owned devices are an unknown to us. We can't validate the system's ability to participate in virtual learning. We can't validate their ability to run the software that the students may need for their classes. And because they are not all the same platform, teachers are now aiming for the lowest common denominator on devices rather than a consistent expectation across the students' usage. As far as concerns about breakage and damage, all of the iPads have been purchased with Educational AppleCare Plus, which actually covers breakage for each device twice a year for the 4-year life cycle of the device. Similarly for the Chromebooks and other devices, as far as personal data on the devices, Chromebooks don't actually store any local personal data. If your Google account is secure, your device is secure. Most of the iPad software that we'll be utilizing is also Google centric. So again, your data is safe if your Google account is safe. Many of the devices that we're using were actually already owned by the district. So the investment is actually only in the iPads. The MacBooks, Chromebooks are devices that the district already owned coming into the school year. I think that covered most everything.
Yeah, I think you got it, Adam.
Okay.
Paula Cohen-Martin.
Hi, thank you again for allowing us to ask these questions and to meeting with us live. I'm wondering if I missed the very beginning of this and trying to log in, but I'm trying to figure out whether the intent is to completely redo the HVAC systems in all the schools and district, and if so, if that's what's keeping us from reopening in a hybrid method, and if that is something that we intend to do. It just seems like such a huge job to take that on in all of the district. I'm wondering how long you anticipate before that would actually be done.
So that's a good question. Our intention is to review the safety of the air circulation, the ventilation, and the HVAC in each building and in each classroom. We want to know more about the airflow, the air exchange, and just how to make our current HVAC system as safe as it can be. In one of my original correspondences, I said that our HVAC system has been well maintained and is operating for normal times, but these just are not normal times. So what we need is an outside expert engineer, HVAC specialist to just review all of our units and all of those variables that I just described in each classroom. If this wasn't COVID, if this wasn't a highly contagious disease, our HVAC system is in good shape. It's just not a typical time. Debbie Saradaki is our business administrator, and I think she could speak to a process of where we are in next steps.
Yes, we did receive proposals from a couple of firms to review our existing HVAC systems, which includes our rooftop units, our split systems that we have in the classrooms for cooling classrooms, and also the univents, which you see underneath windows, which get outside air into the classroom. And the board will hopefully be approving one of those companies Thursday evening, in which case the company will be starting work next week to evaluate our buildings to determine if we may have buildings that are completely safe and we may have buildings that need some work. The company is planning to give us a list of projects that they feel should be done immediately. And also, if we're looking for long-term improvements to our systems. And we should have that information hopefully in time for the September board meeting as far as a report, because it will take them some time in each building to evaluate all the systems in the buildings. And then we're hoping that whatever work needs to be done, if it's work our in-house people can do, they can start immediately as soon as we get information from the company. If it's something we have to bid out, we're hoping that anything can be accomplished before the end of the first marking period, if not sooner.
And in fact, we have already met with some HVAC specialists. Evan Murray is a member of our Board of Education. He's the vice president and was on one of those tours of the building. Evan, could you talk to that point?
Sure. So we spent about 2 hours with an HVAC engineer who's been in the business for well over 40 years. He's done work at Rutgers, at Exxon, St. Peter's Hospital. And we went room by room, system by system, to get an understanding of, just from his perspective, where there's opportunities. And the main focus here is, and based on the guidance that we've been given, is really not necessarily just 100% the HVAC system, but the ventilation of the building itself and how the airflow works within each of those different classrooms and different wings of the school with the univents or in each of the classrooms, and to be able to bring in more air. And he actually gave some really easy fixes for, getting 50% more air into the building just on the rooftop units alone. So, it was a very educational session. We walked around with both of our HVAC in-house people as well, along with Dr. Mast and Mrs. Saradaki. And, they were able to, share what each of the units, where it is, how it works. They went through filtering, what filters are being used in each of the different systems, where the different sources of ventilation come in, where there may be concerns with internal rooms where there are no windows, where the newer part of the building, and how those rooftop units are working. Walk through the auditorium to talk about the ventilation in there with the HVAC system versus having windows and not having windows. Overall, it was very productive. He gave some really, really good information around the high school alone, which did not cause concern. But I think that, to be prudent and really go to a more thorough evaluation, having these additional engineering firms re-solidify some of the information that we've been given, will give the district additional comfort for the health and safety of the community and the children and the teachers. I don't, like Dr. Mess said, it's not an issue of our HVAC systems are not sufficient. It's a matter of, are HVAC systems sufficient enough for this virus to be able to do everything that we need to do to ensure the health and safety of everybody in the building. So I think it's prudent to continue down the path that we're going. It's not that it was being neglected. It was, following through to make sure that, we can make sure that Dr. Mass is signing off saying, I can attest that we have the utmost safest place for these children and staff to be as they go through their day.
Okay, Jacqueline Hedrick.
Yes, hello. First, I want to say I applaud your decision to begin the year remotely for the safety of the staff and the faculty and the students as well. And I was wondering first if the teachers are going to be working remotely as well. And if they are, maybe you could speak to the portion of the teaching staff that would have been forced to take leave had they not been allowed to teach remotely.
The portion. So to answer the first part of your question, we are phasing in people to return to the building. So we do want our teachers, when the engineer signs off that it is safe for people to be teaching in their classrooms, we do want to bring our teachers back to do that. However, we want to do it on a phase in place where we want to make sure everyone has plenty of space. We want our teachers to have the resources in the classroom. We want them to use the district bandwidth that we've invested in. We want our students to see our teachers teaching from that space. So that will be a phase-in process. For those teachers who had to make decisions based on returning, in some cases there have people who have resigned or they've retired. That's been a small number because the conditions really made them make those hard choices. There are other conditions that have been considered through the Human Resource Department, where people have made requests for accommodations, or they would have the choice to take leave for family leave, whether that's to care for a family member or for childcare. So we certainly know that the pandemic is going to end and our schools will return to, I don't want to say normal, because I think that the pandemic has given us opportunities that we will capitalize on our post pandemic schools. But we do want to keep our teaching staff intact. So we are working to accommodate, to keep people teaching when they can. Otherwise, they have to make the choices that some have, to retire, resign, or take a leave.
Stephanie Martolis.
I was just going to ask you another question too. Hi everyone. Good evening. I had already spoke with Dr. Mast about this, but my concern is the masking requirements. Specifically, example scenarios, including if a student has positive antibodies or a medical exemption or a psychosocial disorder like anxiety. And also, if the transmission rate remains low under the benchmark rate of 0.5, what is the board's plan with that?
Okay, so let me start with your last question. We certainly want to continue to watch the numbers. The numbers have been quite good in New Jersey. They did spike up and they seem to be coming down. New Jersey is still in a moderate state of infection. It seems like, I think that was part of the health report. And Darlene, maybe you could speak to this. You're so much more fluid. Darlene is our head nurse in the district.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mast. Yes, New Jersey is still in the moderate risk category. The Department of Health, when they finally put out their guidelines late that Thursday evening, they were worth the wait because they were very specific and they gave us really great guidelines to go by. So it's color coded, simple: green, yellow, orange, and then red. And we are still in the yellow category. Even with the numbers coming down, we remain in that category as of today. I checked it. They do it weekly. You can find it on the newjersey.gov dashboard and you can search for it. So speaking with that, in terms of masking, it is still the safest thing for us to do to prevent the transmission. And of course, if we have any students or any faculty that would need to be medically exempt from wearing their masks due to medical reasons, or if, just psychosocial reasons that they wouldn't be able to wear their mask, or developmental reasons that they wouldn't be able to wear their mask, those things would all be taken into consideration on a case-by-case basis and then approved. I'm not sure what you were thinking about in terms of the antibodies. We're not asking anyone to be tested. We're not looking for antibody results. We may need to see test results of students that could be sick to let them back into school when we get back in. But as far as antibodies, there's not enough evidence yet to show us exactly how long a person would still be immune from this virus. So we couldn't use that as a real, decisive figure. So I'm hoping that answered your question.
Jen DiMatteo.
Yeah, I had to unmute myself there. Hello, everybody. My son.
Jen, you cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Mast, you spoke about how the teachers will be phased back in over time.
Yes.
My question is, for teachers that are working from home in the beginning, they may very well have their own children at home who are engaged in online learning and at times require the involvement and attention of an adult. So what will the protocols be to ensure that during the school day, the teachers, that their time, focus, attention isn't being divided between teaching our children and potentially needing to assist their own children at home engaged in online learning?
That's a fair question. Of course, it comes from the history of our at-home learning in the spring, where everyone was just doing the best they can from home, recognizing that the fall is a whole new restart. We are providing teachers with very clear protocol. For those teachers who are staying home, and if their children are home, they are signing off that they have childcare where they will be able to provide instruction without disruption from their own children. We know that teaching is a full-time, highly engaging job, and our teachers need to focus on the students in their class. Colleen, do you have anything to add to that in communication with your teachers, Ms. Halbert?
Yes, Dr. Mast, as you indicated in the spring, we were all in shock and we were all just responding to that emergency. But since then, we recognized that if we were in this situation in September, that things would have to look different and there would be more active teaching, as well as more communication and contact with our students. So these, I know that I have preliminarily shared some of those expectations as I've had some optional check-in meetings during the summer. And I know our other principals have done that as well. And then we are creating specific guidelines for all of our teachers so that we are consistent both across the district and within a school. So I think all of our teachers understand that and will be ready for that for sure.
Stephanie Stolnick. Just make sure you unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. My question is, it was about 4 months ago that we found out that this was an airborne disease. So I'm wondering, at what point did you start assessing the ventilation systems? Because I guess I'm getting the impression that these assessments are just happening recently, given we got an email at 10:44 on a Friday that this was an issue. The past few months, was this not addressed or brought up or discussed?
And that's an understandable question. Certainly, we have been focused on the air quality starting back in the spring. We looked at the road back guidelines. We looked at our current maintenance system, and we followed the protocols that were given. Our concern grew increasingly as we started to put practices in place to open school, and we just had a cumulative knowledge of the aerosols that the pandemic produces, that COVID-19 produces. It just increased our concern. The difference that was happening is on one day, we needed to move forward with a plan that was opening school, and the governor said that if you needed more time to make your district safer, that you had that option. So that's what we did. Mrs. Saradaki, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that seems to be pretty much it. In the meantime, we had evaluated all our systems, contacted the manufacturers, determined what the maximum filters we could put in were. And basically we were told through the road back is that we were to do the best we could. And we did that. We cleaned our units, put fresh filters in, which we do twice a year. Some of the units 3 times a year, depending on the unit. And then we were just at that point, we have purchased some air purifiers for some classrooms that are interior classrooms. But that was all because we had to move toward opening when we were given the, as you said, when we were given the chance to take some more time to get it better and safer for the students and the staff. That's what we opted to do.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Wonderful, thank you. I just want to thank you all for making this decision to go virtual. I really believe that it's the right decision given the current circumstances. And I appreciate that you made an early decision to give us more time to figure things out, like childcare and so forth. My children are at Terrell, and I'm also a special ed parent. And my question is regarding special ed. I did come into the meeting a little late, so perhaps I missed your saying this, but today we got a questionnaire asking us about our choices regarding our special ed children and whether they would want to go back full-time or part-time or remain virtual. So I'm just wondering, as we make plans to move back into the buildings once these HVAC concerns are handled, is there a plan to move special populations into the building first? I assume that some buildings will have continued problems. Others will be deemed safer for populations to move back into. Is there a plan to focus on bringing in like pre-K through 2nd grade and special ed populations and then phasing in as opposed to bringing everyone back at the same time?
Thank you, Sharon. So our first step is to get the assessment of the safety of the rooms to make the to make the improvements where we can, and we are focused on a phase back approach where we want to bring our teachers back in phases, and we want to bring our students, specifically our special ed students, back. And I think Lisa Rabimbis, our Director of Special Services, can speak to that a little bit more.
Good evening, everyone. So our phase and plan for students with IEPs basically takes us from a start tentatively right now on September 21st with our self-contained population in person. Then moving on with times to be determined based on the evaluations that we receive and the number of students that it's deemed safe to be in the building, moving to have our POR students, those are our students in our pull-out replacement classes, then our students in in-class resource, the classes that have 2 teachers, one special education and one general education teacher. The phase and plan will be dependent on the rates of COVID-19 and also the ventilation system, ensuring that it's safe for students to enter. Our plan at this moment is to enter by special education program so that the district's pull-out replacement students would return all at the same time. The district's in-class resource students would return all at the same time. If for some reason that changes due to the information we receive regarding the evaluations on the HVAC system and the ventilation, then we will communicate that with the parents. But right now our plan is to have those students phase in as program groups.
Michael Prasad.
Hi, folks. Our granddaughter is going to be joining School One in the fall, and a couple for kindergarten. Thank you. We're wondering about school supplies, things like workbooks, the sort of standard stuff that a kindergarten has, reading and writing, kind of critical. And then how does she make friends? In other words, the connections that she's going to have, especially in light of the fact that there's a possibility that, they'll be part hybrid and part virtual. If she stays all virtual, how does she make friends and socialize, which is, I think, key to the structure. She's new to this whole thing, so that's the big question.
That's a great question, Michael. And I do think that, the challenge is hardest for our youngest learners, and we're being very thoughtful about that. I know in the planning, we're hoping to include some opportunities to bring the students together so they have that live time, so their virtual time would have more context. Dr. Slocum, could you expand on my answer?
Yes, thank you. And I think I had the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Prasad a couple times, so nice to hear from you. Yes, we're really working hard with our teachers to figure out ways that we can have some in-person interactions with the students. So we definitely, as Ms. Hobart mentioned before, we're going to plan next week and the first week of school. We're not sure exactly the dates yet, but when our teachers can meet with our students outside in a safe way where the kids can see other students in their classes and form those initial connections. And we also have a great group of supervisors and principals and teachers working together to come up with socio-emotional learning lessons, which other people on this call can speak more about too, but that are designed specifically to focus on how we feel about one another. The one benefit to the virtual experience is that you can see the kids' faces and you can see your teachers' faces and expressions. So kids can have those reactions and see the nonverbal cues that you can't see with the masks on necessarily in the same way that you would in person. But we are working, and we will continue to work on opportunities to find safe ways for our teachers and our students to interact outside when the weather is better.
Can you hear me still?
And I believe, just to add a little bit to that, I believe that we are putting plans together to have supply packages for the students too.
Alex Fisher.
You hear us? Okay. Hi, this is actually Alex's wife, Sarah, and we have a joint question. Our son will be back at School One again in the fall. Although we haven't been given any particulars about the daily schedule or the extent of synchronous versus asynchronous learning, when the hybrid model came out, it made reference to children using their Chromebooks to participate in small group work, presumably through breakout rooms or something similar. During the virtual learning in the spring, our son had about one 30-minute meeting per day with his main class teacher. And in the beginning, that was the only time that he would take his Chromebook and go into another room away from where we were both working and where the rest of the family was doing their at-home work and learning, just for some privacy. And very early on, it became clear that something had been said during a meeting, whether it was supervised by the teacher or more likely in an unsupervised breakout session, that made him uncomfortable, maybe bordering on the bullying line. And after that, all of his future calls were done reluctantly. He didn't want to participate in those breakout sessions. So in the vein of safety, which seems to be the overarching goal of going all virtual, what measures is the district taking to ensure that children will be kept safe from cyberbullying and other inappropriate sharing of materials or behavior during these unsupervised Google Hangout breakout sessions where the kids are going to be doing all of their small group work? Surely bullying that happens online in a child's bedroom or in a child's home is possibly more traumatic than that could happen in a small group setting in a supervised classroom. What is the district going to do about this?
Thank you. Cyberbullying is certainly one of our biggest challenges with technology and our students now. I think that the way that we will address that certainly is through education, but also how the students were organized in the spring and how those sessions had teacher oversight will be different in the fall. So I think in breakout sessions, there would be near point teacher contact and feedback, or at least that with instructional aides monitoring what the students are doing.
Dr. Mast, if I might.
Please. This
Sure.
is Robert McGarry, our assistant superintendent.
Along with the social and emotional lessons that are being developed, we're also developing a series of lessons on technology usage, which will include those kinds of things like being a responsible digital citizen. And we will follow up with teachers on that. And of course, all of the same policies around bullying are continued in this virtual manner. So if something comes up, I'm sure the principal of the school, the counselor wants to hear from you about it so it can be investigated and handled.
Jean Sikowski.
Yes, hi, how are you? Thank you for taking my question. My question is for children with special needs, specifically children with 504 plans, not IEPs. What plans are in place to assist these children with virtually learning? What procedures will the teachers be using for children who have difficulty focusing? How will they be able to re-engage them in the classroom? And how will they be able to monitor if they require extra attention? And how would they limit distractions from other children in that classroom?
Lisa Howard has been working with our teachers using just the platform and increasing their toolbox with technology. I think in some cases that will be part of the answer. Lisa, could you talk about the professional development teachers have been engaged in?
Sure, absolutely. So this summer, we've offered a variety of professional development workshops as we do every summer. But this summer is different in that we took an approach in which we focused heavily on the use of technology to make sure that our teachers are well equipped with different technology tools that are out there in order to engage students in meaningful ways, to prevent any, off-task behaviors or to curb any off-task behaviors, and to make sure that they're using the digital tools properly, like I said, to enhance that learning experience for all students. A big piece of learning how to use current technology tools is also learning how to use those tools to differentiate instruction for the various types of students that we deal with on a daily basis. So I believe that this year our teachers will be quite equipped through their professional development experiences to use technology, and they're already, very broad repertoire of teaching strategies to make sure that they differentiate to meet the needs of all of our students.
Kate Denning.
Hi, good evening. This is actually John Denning, but really appreciate everyone taking the time. That's been very helpful. I guess my question relates to the fact that it looks like there's an expectation that our children are going to be spending a great deal of time on Chromebooks and iPads, which have relatively small screens. And I know my children's face are pulled to those like a moth to the flame. So I want to know, are the iPads and Chromebooks going to come with filters? And is there any understanding of what may happen to a child who spends extended periods of time focusing on a small screen every day?
Thank you, Mr. Denning, for that question. I think screen time is a concern for all of us, and I think the way that we're structuring the lessons will be that students can step away. where there will be a portion of the lesson where there will be direct instruction, but then there will be opportunity for them to do some learning activities before re-engaging. Noel Baxter, would you be able to discuss the instructional model to show how we're focusing on limiting screen time?
Sure. So as we've been working with teachers throughout the summer to really think about what virtual teaching could look like, we have been exploring ways of building into each lesson an opportunity for students to do things that are off screen. So that might mean looking at a text that's not on the screen. So we're working hard right now to figure out, to respond to the earlier question as well about supplies. We're really working with the teachers right now to figure out what kinds of things can we send home for students, including textbooks or novels or other types of materials that they could use to support their learning that won't be screen dependent. We're also working with teachers to think about how they might build into their lessons specific instructions for students to close their screens, to turn their cameras off, to work on something, whether it's on paper, building in breaks for movement, building in breaks to be off the screen. I think that as we've been working with teachers and we've been working with each other all summer, it's been very clear that that needs to be a very structured and intentional part of our planning, because we all feel the fatigue too. So it is something that we have been talking a lot with teachers, and we're working on building in those strategies. And again, really thinking about how to make that explicit for students to give them permission to shut their screens, but also how to build in, the learning tools and the materials that they might need so that they can do work that is meaningful, that's off screen.
Kai Bobro.
Hi, this is Isa Bobro.
Hi, Isa.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry, new laptop. I wasn't sure this was actually going to work. So a follow-up to an earlier question about class structuring. First of all, I want to just say thank you, because for goodness sakes, all of the hubbub, you guys are dealing with an unprecedented time, and to have to do your jobs and stay sane with all of us parents freaking out, I don't know how you do it. So thank you. The big question I have is a follow-up to an earlier question about structure. Last year, at the end of the year, was a bit of a cluster, especially for us. It was inconsistent with teachers. Most of my son's teachers basically checked out and just started doubling down on homework, and there was no follow-up. You did answer to some degree the accountability with teachers and structure. We were supposed to move to block scheduling this year. And it's a twofold question. One is, even though we're full remote, will we be following block scheduling? I mean, will the teachers be held to the same sort of structure and schedule to give the students, regardless of whether they're in school or home, a sense of structure? And secondly, my son is a rising junior, so this is the year. And we have SATs and we have AP exams, and he's accelerated everything with extra APs and high honor roll. And of course, COVID happened in junior year. So how are we? I have some sense of the mess that's happening with SATs, or maybe not happening with SATs. So can you answer, are we going to have better structure? In other words, the teachers will be accountable for teaching in the same time spaces, structure that they would were the kids in class, so that the kids can have that schedule, that structure, that support. And B, how in the heck are we handling junior year? So the APs, SATs, can you guys give us an insight to what you know so far? And I know that is also dynamic right now.
Yes, we can, and I'm going to ask Dr. Heisey to help me with this question, but I did speak with Tim Donahue, who is our assistant principal in charge of counseling, and he is making arrangements to move forth with the SAT. We know that we could find locations where rooms have good airflow, and as Mrs. Saradaki said, she purchased air purifiers. So we know we don't want to delay any of those important benchmark steps for our students. And regarding structure, that certainly has been a concern, by the way, of the teachers too. Last year, when we were given, directives or guidance from the state might be a better word. They really wanted us to do no harm and to go light and to make sure that, every student had access. Concerns around attendance and showing up was really encouraged to make sure that no harm happened to students. In that, I think that the lack of structure did become problematic for the teachers too, and they were anxious to bring structure back. Teachers like that; they like bell schedules. So, Dr. Heisey, you're muted.
Regarding the SATs, we will be administering the SATs both in September and November, and actually we will be also administering the PSATs in October. Regarding your question regarding block scheduling, we had every intent to implement block scheduling this year, and we will be operating utilizing a block schedule for online learning. That's going to be very similar to the block schedule when we actually do return. And I hope, and we all hope, that we do return and we're able to experience a block schedule for a full day live with all the students. But for now, with remote or online learning, we will be following an AB block schedule, which means that every student, and our students that are currently at the high school that were there last year experienced a pilot block. A student will have 4 classes per day. These classes will be 65 minutes in length, and the teachers will be present. The teachers will be providing instruction during that 65 minutes, working with students, assessing students, checking in with students, through guided practice, through independent practice, through providing knowledge. So when we do return live in person, the students will be well prepared and have experienced a block schedule, albeit online. But it is a true simulation of what block scheduling will look like live upon our return.
Adrian Robertiello.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank you all. I think it's really actually a cool thing that you've given the opportunity to share the table together with open minds and open hearts, right? We're here talking together and really listening to each other. So I want to thank you for that opportunity for you and for us. My question particularly is about the out-of-district students, the out-of-district special education students. So I have a child who is out of district and been with the system for many years in Scotch, Plains-Fanwood, and very, very pleased with everything that we have to offer for our students. Personally, I really am very, very content. But this year came COVID, right? And so many things have changed and changed for our kids, whether that be for good or bad in this home environment. In many areas, they have regressed because they're not getting their related services and the PT, the OT, the speech. And this is challenging for many families. And I kind of have felt as I know many other families have out of districts avoid in communication or guidance as just, what do we do with that? And how do we handle that? And what supports can we at least get to interchange or just kind of make it through like everybody else is? Like, it can't be perfect, right? But we have IEPs. They were put with very good conscience based on what the kids need. And for me, particularly, we're going into a new year. How are we looking at these IEPs and getting them to be what they need to be in the best way we can, given the situation? And I'm a realist, right? It's going to look different for all of us, whether we're, in or out of district, or, it's many kids have different needs, and there's not two that are alike. So just kind of putting it on the table, how are we going forward with getting those kinds of supports and related services that these kids and families need?
So Lisa Rubimbis, would you like to handle that question?
Sure. All the schools in September will be charged with really assessing our students and seeing where they are as they come back into school. If you have a particular concern about your child's progress in any area, academic related services, your first point of contact is your child's teacher and your case manager, and discussing what those concerns are, and really looking at the information that the teachers have upon our reentry to determine the students' levels. Where are they in relation to where we were before the emergency school closing, and where are they now? And having that discussion, potentially it may need to be an IEP meeting to discuss what the concerns are and what strategies should be updated in the IEP to address those concerns. So I think in the most important piece is to express your concern in district or out of district with your child's teacher and with your child's case manager. Those are your first two people to connect with.
Amy Balestrino.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. First, thank you. We understand the guidelines from the state have constantly changed, and sometimes the Scotch Plains, unfortunately, was looked at as the bad guy in things that you cannot control. And we are so grateful, my family and all of our friends, how Scotch Plains has handled this. So thank you. I know you already addressed some points about teachers working remotely, but this is just a clarification. As a parent, I very much want my children to have their actual teachers and not be part of a loaded roster or have a substitute, especially when buildings are closed due to COVID-19. Quite honestly, I do not need a teacher to sit in an empty classroom if they're saying they're able to perform their job. There's so many unknowns as we start this year, and these children, quite frankly, need their wonderful Scotch Plains teachers. So my question is, while students are completely virtual, can you ensure me that my child will not have a substitute due to a denied temporary accommodation request from a teacher who's saying they're able and willing to meet the protocols?
So I think that your child will be rostered with a teacher who is able to yeah, it wouldn't be a substitute teacher. Your child will be rostered with her assigned teacher. If a teacher is unable to meet her professional obligations, then she wouldn't be here. So we are for teachers who need accommodations, we're working with them to make that happen. So I don't think you have to worry.
Jillian Goikman.
Hi, this is Vadim, Jillian's husband. We have two boys who are going to be attending the Terrell Middle School. And the question is the debate team going to be available to the 7th graders this year, and possibly other clubs like that, if you can comment on those?
Dr. Dumares, can you speak to extra activities?
I would love to. So we are working with all of the advisors at the middle and the high school level to run as many clubs and activities virtually as possible. So we are working with the advisors to see what kind of virtual activities they can plan for students, how they can best engage their students, and as many clubs and activities as we can run safely and virtually, we will commit to do so. Kemi Trepka. Oh. Sorry, Kami, I think I clicked you off, but if you raise your hand again, I'll bump you to the top of the line. We'll take Nancy Galindo quickly. It's hard to talk and manage this as well. Sorry about that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Nancy.
Okay, good evening. First, I want to thank you guys for all your hard work. I'm actually pleased that you guys got the ventilation system before school started. If not, as a parent, I would have freaked out. My question is, I know that you said that right now you are not asking for any test results or anything, but would you consider to have any personal or students or teachers that are coming into the building to take the test, just like as a peace of mind? Will you be requiring or like will ask for that? So that way we know that everybody who goes into the building is like COVID clear in a way. Thank you.
So I think, Nancy, your question is something we all want. We want to have rapid testing and to be able to test everyone every day, so we know that they're clear. I'm not sure if it's a good attorney question if we can mandate that. I would imagine that everyone would want to, but without that affordable rapid testing available for us at this time, what can we do, Darlene?
So, as you said, we don't have the capability to have that rapid test available to us for everyone that's stepping into the building. So, while we know that there are a lot of people that have that are asymptomatic from this, especially the children, we're going to do our best with a daily screening. I believe we're going to go with when we get back in person, that parents, unfortunately, will be on parents again in the morning to attest and make sure they speak with their children to see how they're feeling, take their temperature, and at this point in time, err on the side of caution. So if they say they don't feel good, it's not the day to say, okay, go to school and try it. And if you don't feel good, go to the nurse. Because unfortunately, depending again upon where we are in that regional matrix of what color we are in, we have to respond very specifically to any illness in the building. And that's all with the utmost caution. So even something as simple as a fever can have us moving students out of their classroom into a different location for 24 hours. So we want to make sure that if you are coming into the building, and this goes for our staff and our students, that you are well. The only risk would be as if you have an asymptomatic person, and there is always that risk. So I think we're going to have some screening in place, and we have very set guidelines in place as to what to do if we are presented with illness in the building, again, based upon where we are on the matrix. And that's another reason why I feel very comfortable with the decision Dr. Mast made, because according to the guidelines, we would have had to had like a ripple effect. The response for just, as I said, a simple illness in a building would have caused a lot of upheaval for the students. So I'm hoping that it seems to be that some of the state is in the green, and I'm really hoping that we can get ourselves into the green and we can respond a little bit softer to anything that may happen. But even if we did testing, if it wasn't a rapid test, it's a point in time test. So you can have a test right now and you get the results, say in a day, and between now and the time you got the results, you could be exposed and be starting to become contagious. So it's not 100% guarantee unless you're going to do that rapid right before they walk in the building. And unfortunately, that's not feasible right now.
But I do have to say that a lot of locations around our area right now, we're seeing more rapid testing become available. PM Pediatrics is offering it now for our kids. I just heard that the Associates, Westfield Associate Pediatric Group is offering it as well. So I think it's coming around.
Okay, going back to Cami Trepka.
Hi, I'm sorry. Something happened and I got kicked out. So if you hear a baby noise, I was just putting him to sleep and listening to you in the same time. No, just a second, babe. So I just have one question. I mean, even though I'm one of the parents who really would have wanted the kids to be in school. No, you can look at the book. Where's it go? But I understand your decision. And even but what I'm worried the most is that my kids will be kindergarten and first class, so they will have to deal with technology. I am trying to keep my kids away from technology, TV, anything, just to make sure they're not exposed to too much of it. Now, while from the other experience, from the last year experience, I noticed, I mean, it's a lot of parent involvement and a homeschooling. And well, there are parents who are working and, don't have time to be so involved with having the kids and assisting the kids so much. So there are two things that really contradict my feelings in terms of I want them to be involved the whole period with the teachers and colleagues, and for me to be able to do what I have to do, right? And for them to be able to do the schoolwork without me teaching them. Because last year, I understand it was a different situation, but I really hope that during December, this system and the remote learning is much more improved, because I have to agree, even though my kid did the homework, I didn't have time to even upload it, and it took me a while to do that. And then we were using I'm Apple. The teacher was using Android. So it was a lot of, I understand that technology will be the same for everybody going forward, which is a good thing. But in the same time, I really need to know how this is gonna work going forward. I was expecting, I don't know, a big screen for the teachers so everybody would see it. I don't know. If you can give me more details. We will probably hear more from our principal this week. But I really hope that it gets really improved, and the parents are not really the teachers, and teachers are not providing just guidance to the parents to do the teaching. Because that's, for a lot of parents, I can say it's not a possibility. Definitely, it's a struggle, and creates a lot of frustration and stress for the kids and parents, and destroyed relationships. Myself, I'm not the best teacher. That's why I didn't choose the profession. So I really need to know, I really hope that this remote learning for this kids this age will not involve a lot of technology. For example, you learn math by playing this game. No, I don't agree with that. I don't let them play games, even though it's a sort of a teaching math or whatever. I'd rather have them writing or reading without technology. How will you juggle with us?
So thank you for sharing that concern and the challenges of that experience. I do know that for our youngest learners, we're looking for platforms where they can be more independent I think part of it again is in the design of the lesson, and I think we're mindful of that. But it still is the most challenging, where they do need some structure and support at home. But I do think it will be less this year. Would you agree, Dr. Slocum?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Mast. And I mean, I have to agree with the caller. You know, we struggle with that as educators. We don't want our children in front of the screen all day. This is not our first choice for sure for learning, but certainly with our younger learners, we are working on ways to make the lessons be also physical for the kids where they're not totally looking at the screen the whole time. In terms of your question about parent involvement, that is another area where I'd love to say that you're not going to be involved, but you will be, you know, especially with the young learners. We're definitely going to need your help at the beginning. What's going to be very different from the spring is that our teachers are going to be live. So they're going to be able, and they're going to have consistent devices across the students. So they're going to be able to help the children, help you anticipate what your screen's going to look like when they're asking for things. They're going to be teaching lessons on how to use the devices, on how to find the activities that are going to be both on the computer and off the computer. And I think you'll be very surprised by how quickly even our youngest kids pick up the routines as they do in the classroom. They become very independent very quickly in the classroom from the routines their teachers teach them. But it will initially require quite a bit of support from parents and families to support their kids staying involved in the procedural lessons. But it will be very different.
David, no last name.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Hi, David.
Hi, yes, it's David Hackett. I have two kids in Terrell Middle School. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. There's been a number of things talked about this evening in terms of opening up. I share some of the concerns that many of the parents have already expressed around, you know, extended periods of time doing remote learning. I guess my question is, you know, I heard things around, you know, rates of infection. I heard things around air filtration systems. What specifically do we need to see in order for us to fully open up? Is there like a couple of key indicators? In the filtration system, do we need a green light on, you know, the color from the state that I heard earlier? I'm not sure what it is, but I'm just looking for some specifics, because I feel like from what I've heard already, this could just carry on and on and on, and I'm deeply concerned. So maybe someone can answer that question.
Thank you, David. Yeah, we certainly have that concern too. I think we're all anxious to have our teachers and our students all back in our schools. I think that the one indicator is, as Mrs. Thomasula said earlier, is just following the data of the color of the map of New Jersey. And should the data stay in a good, safe place, that would be an important indicator. And now that we have a professional review of people making sure that our HVAC system and our ventilation system will handle our air to make all of our classrooms safe for our kids, that will be the other piece. And that work is going to be discussed at, that work will be discussed at the September board meeting. So 2 things: the map has to be the right color, but before that, we just need the professional analysis of our ventilation and HVAC.
Danielle Wildstein.
Okay, I want to just, in the spirit of transparency, I just want to bring it back to HVAC. Dr. Mass and I had a conversation last week. I threw a lot of questions at her. Some were answered, some were not. So I'm going to ask some specific questions about HVAC. The term premium standard was used earlier on this call, and I'm just wondering where that standard is coming from. Governor Murphy's roadback plan talks about specific requirements. And yes, there have been guidelines and recommendations that have come out. And I just don't understand. For me, it's hard to understand why we're reaching for hospital grade MERV 13 filters when they aren't necessary in our school to be safe per Governor Murphy's roadback. And also the plan that Dr. Mast went through with us for hybrid back on August 11th was safe. It was safe for our children going back into the school with teachers. And I'm just not sure what really changed there, because there were no specific requirements coming down saying that we must use MERV 13 filters. So my question is why, and why are we reaching for this premium standard? Who's setting that premium standard? Because that is not being set by Governor Murphy or the Department of Health. What filters can our schools take now? Evan spoke earlier about having a 2-hour walkthrough. And I'm wondering who that was with, what information was reported. Can we get that information? Because I know that Dr. Mash, you had said all the systems have been looked at and cleaned and the filters have been changed. Who gave that report? Can the parents have transparency on what information you've gotten to date from HVAC specialists and experts versus just going off of concerns about air quality? I represent a lot of parents that chose hybrid and that are frustrated because we want to see the evidence, the support behind why you're saying our schools are no longer safe to open.
So as we discussed in our 45-minute conversation a few days ago, the piece was that what changed was one day we needed to move forward with a hybrid model. We put everything in place that was safe as possible. Our HVAC people that work on site did all of the maintenance of the systems. The systems all were holding the highest filtration that they could manage. And that was a concern. But you're right, that met the roadback criteria. On the next day, when Governor Murphy said that if you did not believe that the system was safe, that you could take more time to make your district that way. The air that we breathe has been a concern throughout the whole process, and we continue to learn more about that.
Anna Neff?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Anna.
Hi, yes, thank you for taking my call. My question is very specific to class scheduling moving forward. So we just got the email informing us that now that we no longer need the hybrid model and cohort scheduling, we're just going to go ahead with sort of the normal way we schedule classes and put kids together, et cetera. So what's going to happen if we're actually, I'm assuming that the goal is to have kids go back to school on November 20th. So are we going to now then make new class assignments, have kids change their teachers and classmates, et cetera? It seems to me that I don't understand how that makes sense. If we plan to have the kids go back on a hybrid, because I'm pretty sure that on November 20th, we're not going to go to school full time, and that we would make those class assignments with the intention of moving on to a hybrid as soon as possible. My worry is that we get to November 20th and we will decide that the HVAC is now safe, and then we will spend another marking period now making the new cohort assignments, because obviously, parents would need advance notice to make sure that their arrangements are changed. So I would like to hear a little bit more about that.
Dr. Mast, do you want one of the principals to talk about scheduling?
Thank you, Dr. Dumarisk.
Happily. We have been working very hard over the summer to build schedules that are consistent, that are going to make sure that they support students both academically and socio-emotionally. The worst thing we could do would be to change kids' schedules and teachers in the middle of the year, and we will not do that. So there will be consistency with teachers. There will be consistency with schedules. We know that across the board. The way we organize some of the timing of the schedules might be a little bit different, but we certainly will not be changing teachers. We won't be rearranging, kids that students have gotten to know in their classes. We feel like this is such an important part of connecting, and especially when we're virtual, this is something we're really committed to. Carrie Ferraro.
Hi, everybody. Pretty much I got my questions answered. I think that I'm one of those parents that really favors a hybrid, if not a full in presence in the classroom for learning. I have a senior this year, and I think her concerns are very specific to maybe what all the seniors are feeling or would be feeling this year. She has to get up to speed to be a college student next year. And I really think that she lost some ground last year. She got about an hour's worth of instruction a day from the middle of May or whatever that was, March. And I don't know how it's going to happen that she's going to make that transition. She's like it's like being 2 years behind if this stays at this rate. So I really have to count on you guys to step it up. And I understand there was a lot of scrambling for last year. I completely understand that, but I really want to see the transition. I want to see it like really improve for her.
Dr. Heisey?
Yes, I can jump. Let me jump in here. So, well, first and foremost, the online learning starting in the fall of 2020 will be much different than it was in the spring. So we are adding a great deal of rigor to teaching and learning. The expectations for the students are much different. So students, we're going to come as close as possible to being live in person as we possibly can, knowing obviously that we can't reach that goal, at least not yet. But it's going to be as close to that as possible, where students will be expected to be on time for their class. Likewise, the teacher expectations are that teaching and learning will be taking place during that 65 minutes, and for all of the classes, whether it's an A day or a B day. In terms of preparing our young people for higher education, once again, we will be coming as close as possible to being live, and all of us hope, wish, and I expect that we will be back in person. I can't give you a date. I can't lock it in. But I'm hoping that does happen. So we're going to do the best we can, given the circumstances that we currently have. And I'm confident that both the students and the teachers and other staff members will rise to the occasion. And our young people will be well prepared for what awaits them beyond their senior year in high school.
So before we go to the next question, I just want to say we were going to go until 9, but I see that there's still a number of questions remaining. So if the panel is able to stay until 9:15, I'd appreciate that. And we will then ask you to record your question in the Q&A location. Is that right, Dr. Dumarisk?
That's correct. If we don't have a chance to answer it here, we will keep that Q&A open after the meeting ends, and you can record it there. And we will follow up with that. Stephanie Highland.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, how are you? I'm glad that the district has moved away from the predominantly self-learning through Google.
Stephanie, we can't really hear you.
Ooh. Is this any better? Okay, I'm going to print my question on the second board.
It's still hard to hear you, Stephanie.
I just posted my question to read it to the
Stephanie, could you type your question in the Q&A, and then we'll answer it for you? We're having trouble hearing you. I'm sorry. Next is Arif Khan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Arif.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you for holding this session. It's really helpful. I wanted to get back to one of the earliest questions that relates to technology and the distribution of devices into homes. I know we have a need for these. We get that there will be a requirement for devices. And my understanding is the distribution seems to be Chromebooks for K through 4, iPads for 5th through 8th or something like that, and then laptops for high schoolers. So my question really is, one, how are you handling data privacy, leakage, remote access? I've placed the question in its entirety on the Q&A.
Okay.
But we have the highlights of it though are, there should be some transparency and service level agreements on how these devices are managed and administered, because they're coming into our private networks. Secondly, with respect to the use of iPads, I mean, there's a human interface concern here, which is keyboards, typing extended, content on a screen versus on a keyboard that has tactile feedback has some issues with it. And then thirdly, I guess what I'd like to know is if we are not comfortable with allowing an outside device, which we can't have an auditability on and administrative access to, can we provide our own device? Thank you.
Thank you. Ready, Adam?
All right. So I didn't hear which grade level your student was at, but I'll speak more broadly to all of the systems that are going to be available to all the students. For elementary, in the Chromebooks, everything is managed by Google Admin Console. The students' accounts are all Google accounts. We limit access for third parties to those accounts and the data within those accounts through the API controls in Google Admin. We only provide access to those that are SIPA and FERPA compliant, meaning that they only use their data to supply the educational tool that we've requested of them. The data on those devices actually is not persistent. The data on those devices lives in their Google account and not actually on the device. Managing and remote access on those devices, we actually have no remote access to those devices directly while they're in your home. The iPads are managed through our Jamf infrastructure, our MDM platform. The accounts that will be on those devices are, again, your Google accounts, the students' Google accounts, beholden to all the same API access and remote control access. Is limited to pushing of profiles and software. Again, nothing that allows us to see or hear into the home. And again, same goes for the Mac devices that will be used by seniors. They're managed by Jamf. And we have, again, the accounts that they'll be using for online learning are Google accounts. We do limit the installation of software to a predetermined approved list. That is be provided through the self-service application on both the iPads and the Mac, and through the Google Chrome store on the Chromebooks. All of these devices are vetted before they are put on the approved list for their compliance with both FERPA and COPA. I think that covers most of it. As far as the using your own device, in school, that's not something we can really provide access to. They can bring the device as they've always been allowed to utilize the BYOD network, but we can't provide software or support for those devices. So we recommend heavily that they use the provided device.
One of the compelling reasons to have a one-to-one was for the hybrid model, so students would not need to share devices. At home, they certainly are able to use whatever device they like as long as it has the software and the functions that it needs.
Lauren Sparrow.
Good evening, everyone. My son goes to Brunner and he is entering 2nd grade. Specifically, how has the virtual model been enhanced for special needs students for this upcoming year, given the vast deficits and regressions many have suffered as a result of last school year? Will the aids be utilized in a greater capacity to help students throughout their academic day? Last year, many of us became teachers, aides, therapists, psychologists, classmates, all overnight. And I'm open to doing it again if it keeps my son safe, but we'll definitely need greater reinforcements for our children that have highly specialized needs.
Mrs. Rubenbis?
So I'll start with your last question. We'll be working with our aides further in training them and working on the online platforms to support the students while they're virtual. Obviously, when they're in person, they will still work with the students. As far as the teachers go and working with the virtual model, how will it be improved? Very much as everyone has said this evening, there will be more live instruction. There will be more opportunities for the teachers to work with the aides in providing support to the students while they're providing that instruction, whether it's whole class or in small group on the online platform. There will be continued use of various reinforcement activities, I'll call them, that the teachers will be using that are both hands-on at home, but also using the technology available. We went to a more live platform during the extended school year, and the teachers did a great deal of live instruction with the students, and they felt that that was far more effective for them. So obviously for the special education students, that virtual model where they're looking at the teacher and they're working with the teacher or the aide will be important as we're moving forward. And just as everyone has mentioned, we are improving our practices and we're learning from all of the technology available to really make it better for the students.
This may be our last one, just looking at the time. Kaniz Madraswala.
Good evening. My son is a rising sophomore at the high school. And thank you, Dr. Mast, and thank you all the educators for the countless hours spent devising, revising, and executing a plan. I understand there are many things to consider, including some competing interests in these times. My son is a motivated student, but his spring instruction was very hit and miss. What specific revamping has been done to ensure that learning and teaching will be at optimal levels? Have teachers been instructed on digital learning? And what are the minimum expectations for live learning? And will this be left up to the individual teacher to run? And I ask this just because, this is a very critical year for college application purposes. And I feel that my son, even though he's motivated to learn, he's, as I think all our children have, gone behind in their learning. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Again, we definitely have focused on changing the structure from the spring to the fall, and we have provided teachers with professional development. We extended the professional development time at the start of school so we can make sure that all teachers have that opportunity. And I believe that the professional development support will need to be ongoing. But to speak to the structure, Noelle, would you like to do that?
Sure. So I think that the teachers are looking forward to structure as well. And so we've been really working hard on drafting and articulating expectations for the teachers and the students. And specifically at the secondary level, the expectation is that the students and teachers are engaged together for the duration of the class period that they're assigned to. The teachers will be available for the students, whether they are providing direct instruction, they're leading a discussion, they are monitoring the work that students are doing, or they're answering questions that students have. The students will have direct access to their teacher during the entire class period. And the students will be working through a very structured series of activities as they are instructed to by their teacher throughout that class period. So as Dr. Heisey mentioned before, the goal is really to provide students with the closest we can to an actual class period of instruction, where the students are working on assignments with the teacher giving feedback, where they are working with their peers and doing collaboration. So we have lots of different options for the types of activities that students might be engaged in during that time, but they will be engaged in a full class period with their teacher and with their peers. So that will be a huge change from the spring. And again, I think one that everyone is looking forward to, knowing that the teachers will be there, the students will be there, and they can really proceed with teaching as close to a normal classroom experience as they can.
So that being the last question, though, I know that there are more that you put in the Q&A, and we will get to those and post the answers to those. Before we close, though, I would like to call out Christina Iarusi. She's here because there are concerns around the wellness of our students and the social emotional learning. So Christina, I was wondering if you could just make a statement about how we're focused on that work.
Sure, thank you. Well, it's been a concern for our students all along, of course. One piece that's really nice is that for our elementary schools, we will have 5 student assistance specialists that will be assigned to each elementary school. So that role will be able to expand itself beyond just working with our special education population, but also the general education population as well, and being able to be a support to teachers along with that. We have been providing some professional development on educator self-care this summer. We will be extending that professional development for teachers to be able to learn a little bit more about trauma-sensitive classrooms in schools, some best practices to be able to help them in terms of structuring their classes. Also, we have designed some lessons for explicit instruction, so that it's really skill-based lessons that students are able to then practice with their classmates and with their teachers, and teachers will be able to model some of those social emotional skills as well.
And finally, we heard from everyone on the panel, I believe, except for Amy Boroff and Amy Winkler. Both Amy's are members of our Board of Education. They have given me much encouragement and guidance in reaching out and finding ways to communicate. We know as a board, I know as the superintendent, how important communication is. And I also recognize that communication is ongoing and it's always challenging. That my effort with the encouragement of the board is to, in these uncertain times, to over communicate. And so I hope that the community sees that in our panel discussion tonight. We all have the same goal and care in mind with regards to our students. We want to keep them well, we want to keep them safe, but we also want to keep them engaged in learning and growing. And I think that on this panel, you have a strong commitment from all of us to do that work moving forward. So thank you for joining us tonight, and I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Dr. Mast, I'll just leave this open for a couple more questions to be entered into the chat. So attendees, you have about 2 more minutes to put your questions in, and I will, Dr. Mast, if it's okay, stop recording and live streaming at this time.
Yes, please.